Wow. Hello there. This is a webinar on sexual shadow work and sacred sexuality. I'm very happy to be here with Taki'h today. My name is Katre Teerilahti. I'm also a Tantrika, and I have a nest, a center, a pesa here in Tampere for all work related to love and consciousness. Yeah.
And yeah, that's actually how we met, because
Yeah.
that's where I offer all my work here in almost all my work here in Finland. Certainly it's about 2 blocks away from where I live, so it's fabulous having this nest. I have my nest at home, and then I have a nest where I can work.
Yeah. Wow. So our topic today is quite deep and exciting.
Yes.
Yeah. What is it? Yeah. What's shadow work? What's sexual shadow work? What's a shadow?
Right. Okay, so let's start with shadow. And also, if you're joining us at any point, you can write in your questions in the comments, and I'll have my computer here that we can see your comments and questions and get to them in a pause. So just keep them coming, and we will get to them. Let's see. Okay. So let me just make sure I can see them. Yes, I can see comments now. So, shadow work. So this is one of those trigger words. Either it gets people really fascinated and really like, ooh, or scared, or a mixture of both, because the word shadow,
something dark or shady,
evil, wrong, bad, etc. So shadow, what is it? It's anything we keep in the dark. It's anything we keep in the closet. It's anything that we don't want others to know or to see or to feel about us. It can be a behavior, it can be thoughts, it can be feelings, anything. Yeah?
Why would we put something into a closet?
Right, so why would we put anything in the closet? So the way shadow develops is because when we are younger, very young, we begin to realize that we are not accepted as we are. There's something that needs to change, some behavior, some thoughts, something about us is just not acceptable at home. And so we adapt, because we want to survive, we want to be accepted, and we want to be loved. And so we adapt in a way that is a modification of who we truly are. So there's parts of us we just say, okay, this isn't loved, this isn't acceptable, this isn't okay, I'm going to put this in the closet.
Yeah.
Or what happens is, because of that adaptation, that modification, my original energy doesn't have a way to directly express itself. Let's say anger. Okay, my anger doesn't have a direct way of expressing itself, and therefore it has to find some modified ways, and then they become quite distorted. And then I don't want people to know about that. It's really what I'm keeping in the shadow is my anger in this example. And so that's how it develops. And then, of course, it's built on and perfected and refined as we have our relationships with our friends, with later on in romantic or sexual intimate relationships. It's in our intimate relationships where this gets really reinforced very strongly.
And I would guess that it starts bubbling out. If you try to put a lid on it, it starts to
right,
find its way through.
Exactly. So anything that you hold back, that you try to suppress, that you reject, that is part of your authentic nature, is going to try to find a way to express itself. And that way will usually be distorted if this is something that you originally tagged as, this is not accepted, this is not okay, this should be in the shadow, this shouldn't be seen.
And that's where the ugliness comes from, or how we can perceive these things as evil or nasty or bad, or when it's not straight.
Right.
So how can we get to the straight part?
So the way the ugliness works is, so I may see my anger, for example, staying with that example of anger, I may see it as ugly, but somebody else might see it as powerful or even erotic or beautiful or just natural, normal. There can be many different reactions, but I will see it as bad, ugly, something to be hidden. So that's why it's my shadow and it's my filter of reality. It's not a fact. It's not real. It's not. It's and when my filter changes, and that was your question, then I can live in reality more, as opposed to my filters of reality due to my wounds or previous experiences. So your question was how to bring it out into the light, right? So first I want to mention there's two types of shadows. So this applies to sexual shadow or any kind of shadow. Shadow is shadow, and it will play out in all aspects of your life. However, it's in our sexual life where it becomes more obvious, where it becomes even muddier, where it becomes even more complicated, where it becomes even more painful. Sometimes it's in our intimacy. So sexual doesn't mean penetration sexual, but in our sexuality. So that's one easy way of seeing it. But when we address shadow in any way, it has its ripples throughout our life. So two types of shadow. One is, I know this exists in me, and I'm wanting to hide it. I'm wanting to keep it in the closet. I'm really hoping nobody ever notices. And of course, the truth is usually that everybody has noticed except, and you think you're still hiding it, but usually everybody has noticed. And the other kind of shadow, so in that example, anger, like I don't want anyone to know that I really have angry feelings, so I'm going to, but I recognize that I'm angry. I recognize that I'm boiling, but I'm gonna put on the smiley face or do the polite thing or however I'm gonna try to mask it. Laughs, distractions of all sorts, but it's an energy that can be felt, of course. So that's one kind of shadow. The other kind of shadow is when I can't see it. I don't know it's there. I have suppressed it so much. I have masked it so much. I have put so many layers on it that I don't even realize it's there. And so in the example of anger, it can be, I'm not angry. I don't get angry. I don't feel anger. I'm not an angry person. It's not my thing. Other people get angry. I don't get angry. And that's the shadow that's the harder to work with because we can't even see ourselves in that mirror. But there are ways to work with both, of course. So that's the two types of shadow.
But you say they're like two different types, and they're not just like steps, like from realizing it that okay, I have this, then okay, I have this, but how can I work
right,
with
so
it?
shadow is shadow. So yeah, you can think of them as two different steps, but in you they will be two different things you can access or not access, let's say. So you want to go with what you can access first. Otherwise you'll be discouraged and you may not go any further. Or you won't even... that's certainly not me. I'm just...
I'm all light.
Right. Right, that whole all light and all love thing... very few people can really measure up to that, can really stand to that. And usually it takes a lot of shadow work, a lot of cleaning to be able to claim that. Because then you really are. Because you have integrated your shadow and there's nothing in the closet. You open the closet, it's empty. So your question was how to bring it into the light?
I want to ask now, how can I make a difference between this the second type of shadow that you don't even recognize yourself, and the part that if I am really light, how do you recognize that? Where is the point to actually say, okay, maybe I have hidden something in me? Or if you just start searching endlessly for, there must be something wrong with me, but I just can't reach it. And then
there must be some, yeah, I get you. So there's a few things that you can do, and that's actually how you can enter into the shadow work. So it's the same question. So with the level of shadow where you don't even see it, where you don't even recognize that this is alive in me, or I have this in any way.
Mm.
The way to enter into that is you start reflecting on what is it that the feedback that you're hearing from others come in that you find repeated, and you find yourself saying, no, that's not true. No, that I don't know what you're talking about. And it's not one person, and it wasn't one time. It's different people, and perhaps said in different ways, that are all aiming at this kind of quality or energy.
Yeah.
And so that's the first entry point that I can recommend to you, is to enter by being willing to see what I can't see what's in my blind spot. When you're driving, you can't see that one car which is very close, it's in the blind spot. Doesn't mean it's not there. It's there, and you'll hit it.
Eventually.
If you try to turn, if you try to, go left or right. And so it's there, especially if you're getting those mirrors, that feedback, it's there. So to have the sincere inquiry inside that, I really want to be able to see myself in my entirety. I want to do this. I want to know myself. I want to know truth, and I want freedom. So then let me just reflect. And so that's the first and hugest step to the blind spot level of shadow. That what is reflected, and is there any grain of truth? Start with a grain. Start with a salt grain, sand grain, rice grain. Start with that much. Is there that much true? That'll be your big opening. Because until then you're like, that's not true. That's not me.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist in me.
Yeah.
But if you just take one crack and just let it open with one grain, then you can start to see, okay, if there's a possibility that this is me, even if 1 out of 1,000 times I react this way, that means it's alive in me. Okay, how else to start to see it? And once you're open to it, it will become much more obvious. It's the negation, it's the I'm not willing to see this because it's not safe. Because if I admit this, I won't be loved. I won't be accepted. I won't be able to function. And that's a big fear people have. And it's actually not true. When you can accept it and you can embrace it, then actually it makes you more lovable. Your vulnerability is a modeling, is a inspiration. So, the fears you have are valid because it's going against the childhood script, the script that you wrote for yourself of how am I going to survive through this world. And this was one of the things you said, I will not own, I will not admit, I will not be shown because it's not loved. And so you put it away then and you forgot about it. And here it is showing itself again. And it's a part of you. It's like saying, I cut off my arm and I put it into the closet. And what? I have 2 arms. I have 2 arms. No, you don't have 2 arms. You got rid of 1 arm like a long time ago. But I think I have 2 arms and I'm fully functional. No. So to be able to recognize that, okay, there's something to be reclaimed, and that something is me. Is a part of me. So not to see it as a devil, as the evil, as the bad, as the outside. It's just me. And because I put it away, I shunned it, I rejected it, I refused to accept it, it has become distorted, it has become perhaps immature, it's stunted, right?
Yeah.
And so it needs to be loved. It needs to be embraced. It needs to come home to love. It needs to come back home to you.
Yeah, and that's what also turns it into a beautiful anger, a powerful, like, when you love it and accept it and you heal the distortion, then that's how it's not so ugly anymore.
Well, it's not ugly anymore. It's just a part of you.
Yeah.
Unless you think you're ugly, in which case, more shadow work. But it's okay. I love this quote by Carl Jung, which is, shadow work is the path of the warrior of the heart. And I believe in that deeply, truly, like as one of my missions in this life. I do prayers every morning, and one of my prayers, one of the sentences there is, I am the light that cuts through the darkness, I am the darkness that cuts through the light, and I am devoted to bringing light into the shadow.
Mm.
And I really am.
Yeah.
And it's the greatest act of self-love that I can imagine, because it's you saying, come back home to this part of you. There, that's all it is. At its most fundamental basic, that's all it is. It's saying, I'm no longer going to be ashamed of this and keep it in the closet. And what could be a greater act of love, of self-love? Somebody else, I interpreted it as somebody else didn't love it, but now I have every capacity to love it and every opportunity to love it. So yeah, that's my passion about shadow work. But I wanted to say about the other stage, other type of shadow work that you might feel inside of you, which is about the feeling that I know it's there, but help me God, nobody see this. You know, I pray that nobody ever discovers. And you know, the truth is usually most people do know. But let's say you're really good at it, you know, you're really good at masking it, because there are people, there really are people who can really hide this very well. And so then the way to go into that is to bring it out to the light, is, you know, what is the wound that's behind it? Why did I decide that this is not okay? Like again, the example of anger, for somebody else it's power, for somebody else it's beauty, for somebody else it's vulnerability, for somebody else whatever, it's just normal. Why for you this quality, this energy, did you decide that you were going to hope nobody ever sees? So go to the wound, go directly to the wound, and work with that. Not get stuck on the ugly piece, because as long as you're facing it like that, you'll never get anywhere. But if you go to the decision of putting that away, then you can start to work with that vulnerability, that fear or sadness, whatever is there that caused that situation, and then resulted in you keeping this consciously in the shadow and still maintaining it there. And when you go into shadow work, what you will find is incredible amounts of power, because it takes so much energy
to hold it back,
or to think you're holding it back, and that I'm hiding it, nobody can see it, you know, to mask it, to pretend. It's draining, absolutely. And to be somebody you're not, to have to distort yourself in a way that is not authentically you, is exhausting. And so it's like, you know, having to put on the makeup and the mask to do a full-on play every day, like if you're in the theater, you know, but you're just going to work or interacting with your husband or your wife or your kids or something. So when you can get to the roots of the shadow, shine light on it, bring it back home to love, acceptance, then you can actually harness all that energy that has been stuck there. So that's extremely powerful. And also you can reclaim more of your fullness, your wholeness, who you really are. Well, that's extremely powerful. And you can be actually more free, because as long as I'm preoccupied with keeping this in the closet, in the shadow, or I can't see it, then I'm a slave to this automatic programming that I instilled in myself as a 3-year-old, as a 5-year-old. I'm not free to make decisions in this moment. And when it comes, let's say, to sexuality, right? And so, because, you know, part of the theme of this is the sexual shadow work, that when it comes to our sexuality, am I really free in that moment to enjoy, to feel pleasure, to say no, to get angry, to be emotional, to be wild, to be vulnerable, whatever it might be.
To be crazy, funny, whatever.
Anything. To be more meditative, to be ritualistic. This was a big one for me. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Like, it wasn't the anger, and it wasn't that, you know, it wasn't any, I mean, there were other things, but one thing I want to point out is that for me, what I was keeping in the shadows is that I wanted to be ritualistic in my sexuality. I wanted to bring in more of ceremony and ritual and prayer and, yeah, this kind of exchange with my partner. And I thought, like, what's wrong with you? Like, seriously? Like, what? You know, like, really? Like, you know, that's all the voodoo stuff. And you know, and I had a partner at that time time who was like, this is too esoteric, this is not grounded enough, it's not enough in the body, it's not tangible, I don't feel resonance, I'm not, I'm just not into that. And I was like, yeah, there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, let's keep it in the closet.
Let's keep it in the closet. And that lasted for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And it was, it was really a huge torment for me, because of course, it wanted to find ways. So in groups or in pilgrimages, it was myself, or in the presence of sisters who hold space for me, or this kind of thing. Eventually, we entered in an open relating situation, which was a don't ask, don't tell, because he didn't want to know about it. And I was like, I need to live this out. And so what do I do? And I was just desperately trying to find ways without separating from him. But at the end of the day, obviously our relationship did not last. And this was one of the main things, is because I wanted to live this out. I wanted to bring it out of the closet.
Yeah.
And because it was me. And I finally accepted that, hey, there isn't anything really wrong with this. This is just the way I am, and that's okay. So yeah, it can be something like rituals, or it can be also wild and crazy, or it can be channeling, or it can be anything in your sexual life, or maybe you want to explore different things. It can be anything.
And the only way to find out is to really go into that shadow work. To make yourself whole and larger.
Right. So that is the only way to find out, is to actually allow yourself to enter it consciously. So the difference between doing it just like to get it out, that isn't going to lead you to any greater understanding, or any expansion, or any healing, or any integration, or any deeper self-love. It's like, I just need to get this out. It's like, if, again, going back to anger, I'll just yell. At some point, I'll blow up, and then I'll be like, oh, but that never happens. Nobody will ever find out about that. That didn't happen.
Only within the walls of my home. Like,
yeah, or that one, newspaper person who got the brunt of my volcanic explosion after holding it back for a year. Something like that. Or, with the sexual stuff, that I'll go to some anonymous situation, or I'll take on a one-night stand, or I'll just explore it on myself, and then I'll feel shame, and I'll feel guilty, and I'll feel all kinds of things, because I'm not doing it consciously. I'm just doing it to try to get it out.
Yeah, then it's just gonna pile up, like, oh, no more this.
Exactly. Then that just feeds into the, okay, no, that really is evil. That really is bad. And it's like, well, actually, you're just not exploring it consciously. And so what that means is to be present to yourself, and be present to whoever you're interacting with fully, be present to the situation, that I am going to intentionally now live out this energy as fully as I possibly can allow myself. Of course, in the first time, that might be 10%. That's okay. That's a huge opening already.
Yeah.
And I'm going to allow myself to enter this so that I can observe what happens in me. What happens in me, meaning my physical sensations, my emotions, the thoughts. And maybe as I explore it, I start to get those thoughts of like, you should be doing this. This is horrible. This is terrible. This is going to hurt somebody, or whatever. This is wrong. Or maybe it's like a relief. Whatever it is, I keep observing. I keep bringing consciousness. I keep bringing presence to it. And all in the container of love, of acceptance. I accept this too. I accept this too. Whatever is coming up, I'm not judging it. I'm simply accepting it. I'm accepting it. Of course, I'm not hurting myself. I'm not hurting anybody else. Yeah, when I'm doing this. So if there is some kind of shadow around beating somebody, or physically hurting, or strangling, or whips change, whatever it might be, then you use a pillow. You use a pillow. That's what pillows are for.
Or you just consent with your partner that the actual beating is okay.
Yes, but if you want to be able to really let go, I mean, you can consent with your partner, yes, and if your partner, if usually what has worked is if you can go into it with a partner who's there, supportive, yes, and there might come a time when that partner has to say stop, or avocado, or whatever your safe word is. And then at that point you might feel like, oh, see, it is bad. See, I did hurt. So if you really have a fear that, or you think that might happen, then it can be in the presence of your partner, but use a pillow, a big pillow, a big stuffed kind of thing, and go for it fully. So you don't have to hold back that it's going to, at some point, that pillow is not going to say stop or avocado. And you can just let it go and see what happens.
I use the pillow for the object, not the beating. It's like you just hit your partner with a big pillow.
Yeah, so no. No, I meant you act out whatever needs to be acted out on the pillow. On the pillow right. itself. If you have a real fear that somebody is going to say stop, and that might then bring you back to a deeper wound. Yeah. That see, that should not have been let go of. Yeah. Yeah. So, let's see.
So, yes. What does this have to do with Tantra?
Okay. So, Tantra, the way I define Tantra, and I have explored Tantra through I was exposed to it through the Neo-Tantra world, Osho's lineage, through Sarita, she was my teacher for 8 years, and then through John Hawkins, who was taught by Margot Anand of the Skydance team, and so there's been a lot of Osho influence. And then also studying more classical Tantra, where with Christopher Wallace Harish, and starting to go deeper into what is the stricter meaning of Tantra. And there, so I just want to say that there's specific approaches on how to enter into tantric practices, and they include mantras, yantras, and deity worship, and fire pujas, fire ceremonies. So these are the elements. And so, for me, still, the definition of Tantra are ancient texts. That's what they mean. They're the Tantras, are the ancient texts. And so in these ancient texts, you are guided into how to go beyond the illusion of duality, the world we live in, so that you can reach oneness. Oneness with yourself, oneness with others, oneness with everything that is around, oneness with God, with the divine, is so that you can understand the nature of reality for what it really is, as opposed to this illusion, the games, the Matrix. So, in this respect, all shadow work is going against that conditioning that keeps me separate in the beginning from parts of myself. And then keeps me separate from others, because as long as I think, again, back to the example of anger, if I believe anger is evil, bad, I will reject it in myself, and I will most likely reject it in others. Because if I'm in the presence of someone else who's angry, they're going to trigger what I'm suppressing. So for sure, it's going to be difficult for me to be around anger in general, and I will just condemn it. And so any shadow work where you can go into deconditioning, and the conditioning is what keeps us separate. All conditioning keeps us separate. Okay? There isn't any conditioning that is going to say, usually there hasn't been for most women and men, maybe the newer generations, God I hope, but that you're teaching them you are one with everything there is, including anger, including the heroin needles, including the flowers, including the sun. You know, but I hope that is happening more now with the newer generations. But basically, any conditioning, and most of it will have to do with separateness, with disconnection, with the illusion of duality. That's what separateness and disconnection is. So whenever you're working against that, then you're working towards the tantric path. You are on the tantric path. You may not be using the classical tantric approaches, methods, which I named. The yantra, mantra, deity worship, and fire pujas, ceremonies, rituals, but you are working towards the same aspiration of knowing the true nature of reality, of yourself and of all that surrounds you. So that for me, they are absolutely 100% linked.
And how I perceive this is that they all come down to sexuality. It's like a mini world of the world, and they all are there. And when you are, or when I have been with a loving, conscious, present partner, accepting partner, it has been so much more easier to actually go to this shadow work and this self-realization and finding the truth and expansion.
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely easier when you have a supporting, loving partner. You can also do it in the loving, supporting presence of a teacher, a therapist, a facilitator, a group. But usually it needs to be witnessed, because this is exactly the point. That's shadow is something.
Bringing it out of the closet.
Right. That is the point. And so if you don't have a partner, of course you can still do shadow work. And about your comment that this is the sexuality is a mini world. It's like an amplification of everything that might otherwise happen. It certainly is an amplification. It's where you can see a lot of, or most, if not all, of the shadows that are operating, the unconscious programming. And while Tantra in itself is not about sexuality, it does use sexual energy. And so, for example, there's very little reference to sex in Tantra, but where in classical Tantra, but where it is used in order to go beyond the conditioning. So somebody who has a fear of death, or getting older, or getting sicker, or things like, the attachment to the body, then they would have been instructed by their guru, master, after many years of practice and so forth, to connect. They would have been given a consort with whom they can interact with intimately, sexually, and that consort, so let's say I'm the one who has fear of death, getting old, decaying, sickness, and letting this body age, then I would be given a consort who is older, decaying, and the body has already started to go, and I would be instructed to make love to this man, and to find the beauty and the juice, the youthfulness, to be able to go beyond my conditioning. The opposite is also true. If I'm attached to this idea of the youth and the beauty and the juice and the voluptuousness and so sorry, that was the same example in reverse, but for a man and a woman. So so that's my rejection. So the same would have been done, that you would have been given a consort that is the opposite. So basically any opposite of what, if you reject pleasure, if you reject, the more ascending path, the more ascetic path, that pleasure, joy is not a part of my life, you will be given a very bubbly, joyful, bouncy, juicy consort, which will trigger your judgments about how you spend your life and what constitutes awakening. And this is all for the purpose of letting go of those
conditions,
of those conditionings, of those limitations, of those shackles. Because if you don't, this is the other thing about shadow work, and another reason why I believe in it in so much, is because if you don't believe in an afterlife, then just entertain what I'm about to say as entertainment, and that's fine. It's a nice story that when you die, you go to the Bardo, and the Bardo, this is according to the Tibetans, who have studied this a lot, and in the Bardo you will be shown different images, realities of your addictions, your attachments, your desires. So if you're, if again, this addiction or this desire about the youthful body, this kind of thing. And you'll be also shown your fears, what you reject, what you push away. And so if you cannot identify yourself with all of it, this is also me, this is also me, this is also me, then you will be sent back that this is the lesson you need to learn. And voila, and we continue with our reincarnations. So, in order for you to maybe, have if you recognize it already and say, yeah, I know that's there, but I don't really want to look at it, okay, but you'll come back to do it. In that story, if you believe in that. So that's another motivation for the shadow work is it actually prepares us for the Bardo and to be able to see everything as part of me, as the whole. The whole out there is the whole here. Yeah.
Wow.
Right. So that's what it has to do with Tantra.
Yeah.
And that sexuality is a distillation. It's where
exactly.
it's concentrated.
Yeah.
It's like the essential oil of, where all this is played out, and where if you can bring consciousness to the base, you can bring consciousness to the root chakra, to the base center, to the sacral chakra, to your anus, to your vagina, to your balls, to your womb center, to pleasure. If you can bring consciousness to it and live it fully, and yet not be carried away by it, not be lost in it, then your presence, your consciousness, and your love, if you can bring love and acceptance to all those things, then your love and presence are quite developed. Yeah.
So it's like testing yourself from day to the other. Like, okay, is this...
Yes, it's a great testing ground. Yes. And actually, this is where some misunderstandings happen. That is, the Tantra is about having orgies, or having lots of partners, or having lots of sex, or having lots of orgasms. And well, if you have a goal for any of those things, if you have attachment to any of those things, then
Good
you
luck.
are running far away, like in the opposite direction of the tantric path, of going beyond your illusions, of going beyond your conditionings, and you're just feeding those addictions, that addictive, or that I'm not enough, or that whatever is alive there in the root chakra, in the sacral chakras, in your first two chakras usually. You're just feeding it and clothing it. Again, a shadow takes on a different mask, a different persona, but the shadow remains, the wound remains. Yeah.
Would you have an example about all this? Like an experiential for us? Like, can we try this out now? This whole shadow work thing?
This called shadow work thing. Yeah, okay, so whoever's listening, or if you're watching this, you can do this. So close your eyes. Take some deep breaths, let go of all the talking that you've just been listening from us, and just come back to yourself, feeling your body. And feeling your physical sensations. That's what it means to feel your body. Feel your physical sensations. Are there any emotions that are present for you? Any thoughts? And just becoming aware. So I'm going to guide you into 3 inquiries for yourself. There's nothing you have to necessarily do about it, but it's to open up the space for you, for shadow. So the first is, in your intimate relationships, whether that has been partners or really close friends, if you haven't had many partners or any partners, but if you've had a romantic partner, sexual partners, focus on them. What is the feedback or the reflections that you've gotten that have happened with more than one partner, more than one occasion, and that your response was, that's not me, that's not true, and you've excused it or defended yourself, justified it? Just letting that come up, and trust whatever comes. I'm just going to give a minute now for you to reflect and let that bubble up. connecting to that, whatever that truth that you've been reflected on, whatever that is, and asking yourself, is there any grain of truth in that? A grain of salt, a grain of sand. Can I see that, yes, that energy is alive in me, that energy has been expressed through me at some point? And if the answer is yes, just taking a deep breath and observing how that feels. How that feels in your body. What happens? Is there a relief? Is there a curiosity? Is there maybe fear or anger that comes? Or anything that comes. Just noticing, okay, this is what happens when I admit there's a grain of truth here. So just allowing that and accepting that, loving that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's your defense mechanism. That's okay. And then making the vow to yourself, if you wish, that I want to be able to see this. I want to be able to see what's behind it. Why this comes out in this way. I want to be able to reclaim my power. I want to be able to live in freedom from this automatic that's keeping this in my blind spot that I don't even realize it. In your own words, a vow to yourself, that a commitment to yourself, that you're opening the door to being able to bring this back home too. I'm taking a minute now to connect to your heart and your base and making that commitment to yourself. Okay, whenever you're ready, opening your eyes. Whew. If you need to write down anything, you can do that. And I'm gonna just ask here to Katri how it was for her. And if you want to write anything in the comments, if you feel to share, please do. And then we'll go to the next inquiry. And so there's 2 more to go. I'm feeling generous.
Oh yeah.
How was that?
Yeah, I've worked with the subject before, but it's I think the actual revelation there is like what you said earlier, that if you can't, like, okay, well, the feedback I've got is that I want too much sex, I want too much love, I am too needy.
Mm-hmm. So the too needy, let's go there,
Yeah.
because it can be in any way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it alludes to.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, that's not true.
Yeah.
Like I've been before. But when I found the wound, like you said, if you look at the wound, straight at the wound, it's the acceptance I'm looking for with the love making. Like when I get the sex, when I get the love, I get the acceptance. For me, all this craziness, all this vastness, or whatever is in me, I feel I am accepted when somebody wants to love me in that. And so then that is the so it's, even though it's difficult to relate with the feedback you get when you find the wound, then you start seeing the whole thing.
Yeah, that's what opens it up. It's always, the answer is always inside. Let's see, did anybody have any comments? Let me see.
Are they all there?
There's comments, yeah. Okay, so nobody's sharing right now. You can see my face really big now.
Yeah.
Nobody's sharing right now from what I can see. So yeah, that's the key, is to be able to go into your own truth, into your wounds, and be able to see where it comes from, because it was distorted at some point. You just wanted love and acceptance. Yeah, in your case.
Yeah.
Of course, for everybody, you'll have your own words and your own reality for it. But this, I'm too much, I'm too needy, goes back to needing, wanting to be accepted. And you can then begin to also see it in all aspects of your life, not just sexuality. But in sexuality, it might be clearer.
Yeah.
Okay, so next practice, closing your eyes. Again, reconnecting to yourself, your physical sensations. And now we're going to go and touch into fear. So, what do I fear? In terms of sexuality, what would be one of my worst or biggest fears to live through, to experience? It can be a situation, it can be an emotion, it can be whatever. Now again, turning the finger inwards, because that fear usually is about something out there, that's triggered by something out there. Turning the finger inwards. What is it about me that I'm rejecting or suppressing? Avoiding. And finding the link. And again, if you have anything you'd like to share from this short reflection, please type it in. And I'm just going to tune in with Katri now, and then we'll go to the last one. How was that? Let's just see. Yeah.
Yeah. I fear I hurt the people I love. Yeah, totally. And like hurt badly, and then that goes into that me being bad. I am bad. I am bad. Like fundamentally.
Right.
Probably that I wasn't really able to answer the second question you posed. But like, does that have something to do with the aggression in me and the actual power that is in me and the capability to hurt?
So the fear is that you hurt others.
Yeah.
That's the fear.
Yeah.
In your sexuality, let's say. Because we're using that as the example.
And loving, yeah.
And loving. The fear is to love?
No. To hurt the people I love in sexuality and in loving, like
in loving them. Yeah. Right. And so then the second part is, what inside of me am I rejecting? So what inside of me am I rejecting? Use the second sentence that you, the second part.
What am...
No, you had said it. You did say it.
I fell out.
You said about your power?
Like my capability, my power, yeah. I'm afraid of my power. Are you? Yeah, probably. Yeah. In all its aspects, in all the, in everything I can be.
Right. So that which I fear outside, I'm actually rejecting it, suppressing it, toning it down inside of me. There's a link there. It may not be so obvious, and it wasn't at first for Katri, but there is 100% of the times a link there. You might need to refine inquiry about it, but it's there. So I'm just noticing there's some comments, so maybe it's about this. Let me just check. Okay, hi Risa. Hi James. Okay, let me just read it. I'm going to read it out loud. I have a fear of my own sexual tendencies being fueled by wounding. I became very afraid of leakage in my sexual energy, and that perhaps a lot of my desire for sex was coming from the wound. Yes. And that it will take me to dangerous places. Have had ritual abuse experience. fear is that my sexuality will attract evil. Okay, yeah, so that through opening to the sex center or through opening to your sexuality, you will attract evil. And that perhaps you also said that you'll be acting out from wounds. Yeah. So then I encourage you to take that second step, which then what am I rejecting inside of me? What am I suppressing or toning down? And so, Risa, I can't answer that question for you, but already just being able to own the fear, that's already a big step. But then to be able to turn and point in. Because as long as we're looking out, we need everything outside to be safe. And the answer is here. And I understand with deeper wounding, like sexual abuse, ritual wounding, abuse, rape, it can be even harder to turn in for the safety. But I can guarantee you, because I've experienced that myself, I can guarantee you the answer is still inside, and it is even more powerful. As powerful as that wounding is, that that resource inside of you is just as powerful. So, Risa, I'm wondering if you've come to any understanding about what your fear is related to inside of you, what you're rejecting or suppressing. Okay, so just sit with that for as long as you need. And we're going to go to the next one, and you can always replay and come back to it or comment later on. That's perfectly fine, because I know these things take time. It's not just quick like that. But these are just tasters. Of course, normally, like for example, I'm having a retreat in Crete where we're going to go into shadow work and into sacred sexuality and into opening through the root, through the base, to life force energy, because when you can let go of your wounds, we can let go of what is clogging up the space there, then you are open to life force energy, and you are open to that being anchored and really grounded in you and stably and moving through you in your daily life, as opposed to moving through your wounds. So we're going to be doing that for a week, and it's extremely life-changing, powerful work. Right now you're just getting a taste, and I can understand that for some of you that might be, it's, you can't make the links, but at least just open up to, okay, there's something there, there's some correlation there. So we go to the next one, the last one. Again, close your eyes. Some deep breaths, feeling yourself. And now we're going to go to desire. So what about desire? What is it about that I desire the most, that attracts me, that keeps me hungry, that I have such a longing for, and that no matter how much I get, that I never feel fulfilled? Or it's still there, it's like this insatiableness. Or maybe I don't allow myself to go for that desire, I don't allow myself to actually get that fulfilled. It's still a longing, a desire. And in this case, we're using sexual examples, so you can stick to that if that's possible for you. Trusting whatever comes. And now again, taking that finger that's pointing out, that object of desire out there, or that whatever it is out there, and pointing it in. What is it in me that where there's a gap, there's a void? What is it in me that is not filled, that I'm trying to fill with this external desire, longing? Taking a moment. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. You can stay with it longer if you need to. I'm going to check in with Katri and see about her experience. So So
I always and infinitely desire for a partner who is conscious and accepting, like so big and so that I can be there, that I don't need to do that myself.
So that was the answer to part 2.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So yeah, that which we desire and long for outside is simply a mirror. Is simply letting us know that which we long to develop inside. And we have the capacity. We are everything, right? Going back to that, that I am all. And so that, in your case, that consciousness, that accepting, that embracing of everything that I am, I need to develop it inside. Otherwise, nobody out there is going to be conscious enough, accepting enough, or stick around enough, or at the right time, in the right way, or whatever it is. I will always feel unfulfilled, because it's a bottomless pit. So long as I'm looking for it outside, and I haven't been able to develop it inside. Of course, the external can support us, absolutely, 100%.
Experience, yeah.
And it can be an important and beautiful modeling that, okay, until I develop this enough inside, I will use my partner who represents that to remind me and to show me one way that that is done. To remind me that, oh yeah, I want this to be alive in me, and this is one expression of it. Now let me find out what's my expression of it. How do I live it? How do I become? How do I let that develop? It's stunted, it's been rejected, or it's been avoided, or it hasn't been there. That's okay. Now how do I let that grow? How do I water it, nourish it, and then allow it to flower? And then that partner can still provide the consciousness and acceptance and all of that. But it's not instead of. I'm not going with a begging bowl, fill me. And it's not in a space of you complete me. Because then without you I'm incomplete. I'm missing my arm again, that arm that's in the closet. And you happen to have the arm right now, and so great. When you're around, I'm a whole. And when you're not around, what happens? So that. So those were the inquiries, a little self-inquiry. We're open to answering any questions that might be there from those who are on. I'm just going to scroll and see if I missed any. Hi, you can see my face really close. Okay. There haven't been any questions that haven't been answered. I'm just going to spend a couple more minutes. If anything comes up, please put it in the comments and we'll answer them now. And otherwise, I can always comment later. Oh, Katri has a question.
I have always questions.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, like, or it's more like a story for you to comment on.
Okay.
Like how I've experienced all of this in my life, in practice, has been like earlier on. I was in relationships where I submitted, and the other one was very dominant, and I was sort of suffering there, but I wasn't able to leave because I needed that. I was very addicted to that. And then later on in life, I have found BDSM, where submission and dominance are in the sexual play, and I feel that what I needed unconsciously in my relationship, when I played it out in the sex, and that was okay there, it came out. And so these power games, which are probably very much there for like 90% of relationships, how comment on this, please.
Okay, so about power play, possibly in the form of BDSM, but power play dynamics. So, it is true that people who engage in BDSM are consciously playing out what many people do not, but still those energies are in the dynamic of the relationship. And so power over is a very common theme in relationship between two people. Doesn't matter your gender, and in particularly in sexual romantic kind of relationships. And you can take turns, or one usually plays one role and the other one usually plays the other role. One is dominating and the other one is more submitting to that domination. Or you switch. And so that's done usually unconsciously in BDSM. It's brought into a conscious space, and it's saying, you know, I choose to go into this consciously. Beautiful. Conscious sexuality. Beautiful. And it's all in the container. What it allows us to move through is the shame, the guilt. You can reclaim a lot of your power this way because it's not being kept up like so much in the closet, that it can be expressed. It has its limits, however, because what is experienced in BDSM is not necessarily, doesn't take you necessarily to the next step. For some people it does, and that's beautiful. The next step meaning the wounding. So if I go into BDSM because I feel I'm too much and I want to be as much as I possibly can be, and I have a consort there who's willing and accepting to be as much, to be on the receiving side of as much as I can be, that's beautiful. And that's a service. That's absolutely gorgeous, and healing, absolutely healing. And maybe through that, then automatically the space opens in me of, well, maybe I'm not too much, but maybe I still walk away from that feeling like, yeah, actually for anybody else I am too much, you know, and I need to pay for sessions or be with very specific people where they can handle me.
I can relate to that.
Right? So that's usually what happens, is that while I give myself full permission to consciously live this out, I don't go into what is originally there as my wound, as my limiting belief, or my what caused me to already put that in the shadow. This earlier inquiry was the first inquiry, which you went into, which everybody went into, and so to engage, to observe, to do it consciously, what happens in me, what are the emotions that come up, what are the physical sensations that come up, what are the thoughts or beliefs that come up, and then to take it to that step further. That is there a wound related to this? Why can I not live this out in my daily life? If I cannot live this out in my daily life, then there's still something in the shadow that needs cleaning. And it's fine that not everybody wants to live this out with me, but I'm okay admitting it. I'm okay being seen in it. I don't have a problem that somebody knows. Of course, you know, there might be some thing, you know, with work or, you know, things like that. But I'm not keeping it in the closet because I feel ashamed or I feel guilty or I feel this needs to be hidden about me. So that would be the step that I would say, in addition to living those power dynamics out consciously, then also what has prevented me from being able to live this out in my daily life normally. Normally. Yeah. Let me just check. Any questions have come in? No questions have come in? Okay. Is there...
Then there is the whole point about the sacred sexuality.
Right. So
but maybe we need to have another
second
webinar
because it's already been over an hour. So about sacred sexuality, yes. So what makes sexuality sacred? So conscious sexuality being where I am conscious of myself, and my actions, my emotions, my thoughts, my words. I'm conscious of my partner or whoever is present. If there is anybody else present, it doesn't have to be anybody else present. And I'm conscious of my setting. So conscious sexuality, again, like BDSM, bringing consciousness into the situation fully. Wonderful. Does that make it sacred? Not necessarily. So, right? So there's like a little ingredient that's missing. So the way I define sacred sexuality is when then there's alignment between my sex, my root, my base, my heart, and my soul, or my higher self, or that, you know, that it's not just feeding into the ego-based construct of why I do what I do. So in this example of BDSM, when we go into it, then it's actually just feeding this wound. That I can only do this in this little box, in this little way, with this person.
So accepted in this box.
In this way, right. But other, when I leave this box, or I leave the presence of this person, then I'm still... So it's my higher self, instead of feeding the wounds, the insatiable desires, avoiding the fears.
So ego-conscious sexuality?
Well, I don't know. I'm not here to create new terms in any way. Not at all. But what I wanted to focus on was actually the sacred sexuality.
Yeah.
That this alignment between these three centers, these three parts of me, which is all of me, basically, bring in alignment to that. Am I a yes or a no or whatever in this? And is all of me there with me? And if not, then pause, break. Let me see what's out of alignment and what needs to come back to alignment. And then, is this for the benefit of all? Yes, I'm doing it also for my own healing or my own expansion, and for us as a couple or as a partnership or whatever the relating is. But also offering it up that it is for the benefit of all, and that I can take a step, going back to the Tantra definition, take a step to true union, to knowing myself as who I really am, God, and to seeing reality as it really is, the true nature of reality, beyond the duality, beyond the separateness. That is this act supporting that, and it can be absolutely wild and raw. It does not have to be in Yabyum, connecting with third eye in stillness or chanting. You know, it's not about what it looks like. It's what the alignment is inside and what the intention is. And that brings the sacredness to it. It's you holding on to consciousness, presence, love, acceptance, and divinity, higher self, soul. This is the sacredness of it. And it doesn't matter really what it looks like out externally. It's what the space inside is. And the reason why I couple shadow work with sacred sexuality is because when you go into the shadow work and you release those wounds and you go beyond, you go back to the essence, then you can connect to the sacredness. It's there. It's not like you have to like make it happen. It's not like you gotta call it in, you gotta develop it.
Enough incense, enough candles.
Right, you know, enough chanting. Did I chant enough? Did I sit in Yabyum enough? Did I move my energy
high enough?
High enough? Is my third eye open enough? No, it's none of those things. It's am I in reality? Do I recognize myself for who I truly am, and do I recognize this world for what it truly is, and can I go deeper into that, into a connection, and ultimately dissolve. Ultimately, you go beyond your physical boundaries, or I'm not the body, the emotions. I'm not the body. I'm not the mind. I'm not my thoughts and my limiting beliefs. I'm not my emotions. So then, what am I? So that's sacred sexuality. Okay, James. Hi. Love what you're saying about the purpose, intention, alignment behind sacred sexuality. Taki'h. Wait, it says see more. Practice, hear from you, lots to learn. Okay. You know, James, I love you and all your support, and I have to say, you know, we are born like this, but very few of us make it unscathed through the teenage years. So really, it's hi. So it not only you have lots to learn and practice here, but you know, most of if this wasn't such a hot topic, if there wasn't so much to learn and grow from this, then sacred sexuality workshops and commercials that use sexuality and all these things that are around sex would be not there because we wouldn't need them. And the reason why they're everywhere is because we need them as a humanity. I would be conscious, of course. This is a warning to everybody. The kind of work that you engage in, just make sure that it is going to the wound. Make sure that it's going beyond the just let's feel good and have that peak experience and the trippy experiences that you were telling that you were
I'm seeing
commenting.
God, I feel union
And the DMT. And so to go beyond, just those peak experiences and have it be grounded and have it be really anchored in yourself, in your body, in your daily life. That is this how now I see my daily life? Because if there isn't, then that was a peak experience. And it's great that you know that exists, but how to live it out.
And the way can be a door and a portal.
Absolutely.
I know that this is existing.
It is a door and a portal, but you gotta let go of the wounding in order to get there. Thank you for the heart.
Under the portal.
and stay in the portal, have access to the door. And also for the life force energy to ground and to work through you and to move through you. You've got to do the cleaning, and so there's every reason to say yes to shadow work and to cleaning in your base. I have, for those who are interested, I have a taster, a 3-hour event in Helsinki next Tuesday, because I live in Finland. And
it's a good place. Beautiful spring.
That was, I think, sarcasm. But there's sun shining right now. And if you're a woman, I'm having a women's only retreat on sexual shadow work and sacred sexuality, opening up to the life force, descending path, and every reason to say yes to this. In Crete, in September, we're going to be working up to the full moon. In September, it's September 8th to the 15th. You can send me a message through Facebook or email through my website and get more information. So I think we leave it there. Exactly. I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, awesome.
And thank you, everybody who joined live or later.
Yeah.
And if you have any more comments or any more revelations from those practices, please put them in the comments. I will read them and we'll comment on them in the days to come. Thank you. Bye.